Time for the Cricket Rebellion any day now, isn't it? Any day. The Cricket Rebellion. That's what I titled last week's broadcast. Act or succumb. How's that? Not because I say, because that's the way it works. I'm glad to hear more and more people are stepping into and up to the plate and deciding to make a difference, one little bit at a time. And as I've observed for myself, it doesn't take all the grains of sand on the beach to cause change. And I don't mean change. Not that thing that falls through the hole in your pocket that the government wants you to experience here coming in soon. I hope you're all really making plans on setting up independent ways to I don't even want to use the word barter. Barter is within the context of the tax laws. How about just make private contracts with people for the things that you need and maintain cash? And if you're not paying attention to what's going on in the banking industry for the last few years and you haven't even thought about it, and all those things they use to support the derivative system, and you're still into part of it and still in the bank account system, don't have backups on all that. If you think the digital lifestyle in the future, the transformative new technocracy that they want to put onto us is what you want to experience, well, then go ahead and stay into all that. Otherwise, you really have to start paying attention to making a difference and distinction here. This is no joke about watching austerity be placed on the world. The governments do not like competition. And so you're already setting yourself up, if you understand that, to create independent systems that are eventually going to be targeted unless something happens. And that is that you step up to find a wrong you need to make right, to do a couple things. One is to get yourself experience on how to deal with people in positions of proposed authority, purported authority, ostensible authority, and explain to them how they have none. And if you listen behind the woodshed, I've explained in just innumerable ways how that is done. And it's really, actually, although it comes in many different ways, it's all utilizing the same method. When I get into a discussion of it, it's not really a literal list that shows up in my mind, but I go through this list that just develops in my mind of how you do that. As I was commenting on the worldtruth.org chat, we have over time a very slow running conversation going on that, because I don't really get into too often to the worldtruth.org social network, kind of like Facebook without all the nonsense. So how we get our word out today. So worldtruth.org has actually got the servers that allow me to do shoutcasts through to you. Where all the places that we are. And thank you to all y'all that do cover the broadcast and then promote it. I don't do any of that promotion stuff. Maybe, like I've said before, I should, but getting the word out is important. I've been here talking behind the woodshed, talking about principles that we need to be observing, how to look through the transparency to see the felony against you, and that's the requirement. That's really the overpressing requirement. However you want to decide to address it, essentially you're looking at the crime against you. It's literally a felony and worse, and we're obligated if we want to respect ourselves, we're obligated to stop the crimes. Again, because the government doesn't like competition, anybody who attempts to stop them on two levels will be addressed. And these are just people. Remember, please don't ever forget, when you talk government, that's a code word covering people. That's the word government gives to people a false assumption of authority. These are people in there. These are men and women in a place that they think is covering them, that you have allowed them to take that cover called government, that fiction, that illusion, and beat you down, or keep you in check, or keep control of you, or keep you having to do certain things, that they continue to move. And I've been telling you, if you want to stop that, you do have to step up, otherwise whatever they want happens. That's just a natural law. Whoever wants to get to natural law, this is a natural law. I don't have to put a name on it to find out that it's no good, that I need to stop it. You know, I've been giving you examples of what we do. I do during the whole week. We move, and as we move, we found out it's not, there's a two-part problem here. When you find out that this thing called government that these people have gone into to use against us is being used against us, that you can address it isn't being some sort of hero. It's not being some amazing thing. That to me actually reflected a failure in us. So admitting to this condition is not something that's not something noble at one level. And so you have to understand, this is not an arrogance we come to do this. As I keep telling you, it is that sense of duty to ourselves, if nothing else. And hopefully you see in yourself someone else, and someone else has that same duty for the same reasons. And then we get to the united work that this is, to save ourselves even against our own illusions. That you are having to step into getting the experience of finding out and the humility to find out it was on you to not let it get here. We should not be sinking into the stinking abyss. So finding that out and acting against it now is not some great noble thing. On the other hand, the way we got here, the way we've been duped to be here, that you stand up against the oppression is all of it. It's everything. And for those of us that don't step up, we become at least inert, but more likely part of the mass of the problem. That it gives the power back to the people that stepped into fictions of authority. As we were talking on World Truth, just a quick little thing, I said anymore it's come down to where all my research is coming down to pretty short statements and sentences. That a so-called authority comes against me, and if they make a claim for any right, and this is just in a basic sense, folks, there's a whole lot more behind all this. If they come against a right, a property, or a remedy in me, and they have a color of authority when they're doing that, that is a felony right there. So I get to respond to them immediately to say that. You're interfering with the right, property, remedy under color of the authority that you bring. That's a felony. If it happens to be a cop, or one who thinks they're a cop, and they're armed, I actually bring out and say, and you're armed. That's aggravated felony. So, are you going to do your job and arrest yourself, or do I have to do it? And that's how simple this really comes down to. And this happens to anybody who comes with an authority against you that has no actual authority. And that actual authority is pretty slim, as you hear me talk about all the time. But for those of us that step out and get into those areas, for whatever reason, there is this system. And part of it I kind of agree with, because some of us are not too good against each other, about ourselves. On the other hand, there's a system that has taken control of the entirety of our knowledge and our existence and our awareness and our reality, that says that it will decide what's going to happen and what you're doing, that we haven't thrown off either. And so it doesn't like competition. It purports to say it's protecting you, which in its most basic sense it has the authority to, in a way. As I've talked to you about in the mining district, we found out the mining district, the grantees came together to protect themselves against trespass, whether that was the state, the government, federal or state governments, or whether that was other people. Because people are not so nice. And because of that fallen nature, because we don't rise up and do the better thing, and we actually give over too much so that we're actually sliding into the stinking abyss here before we start to get active, that we have established certain type of institutions to help mitigate those problems amongst ourselves. And we all, I hope, the better hope, is that we do better every day. And we get those that aren't doing so good to get to do better as we can get them to do. And hopefully you do that by showing examples. You certainly can't do that by making a bad example. And that's what seems to be these people in government seems to do, but they also tend to try and make examples out of examples to try and force their so-called authority. And so this brings up to me this idea the ongoing proof of hypocrisy. And I look at these news articles, so-called news. It's the notice to us of what they want to tell us and what they want us to know. I look at these as evidence of certain things that are only applicable once you've committed to do something. In other words, when I'm going to make a quick comment here about Silk Road and Ross Ulbricht and the sentence to life in prison. But if you're not interested, it doesn't mean anything. However, if you're looking at some hypocrisy in the government that this shows, that this evidences, this is evidence in your bag of evidence, your bag of law that you bring, your bag of evidence, your bag of reason, your bag of natural law, your bag of whatever you're doing to prove a point, to stop a wrong. That this Ross Ulbricht was sentenced to life in prison for setting up a website that essentially we're told was moving a lot of illegal things and drugs and things like that. And he was named, he was actually charged with being a drug kingpin. And he was convicted. And the sentence, and surprising to me a bit, was the same judge that ruled against NDAA and then was set against and overruled by an appellate court that said that NDAA actually continues. The appeal of which the Supreme Court abandoned their post to determine the constitutionality. And I told you that was the day I changed the broadcast, notwithstanding the crickets and the apparent future that we would have to listen to the crickets, our mass silence against this now declared war and oppression. This guy is purported, and I guess by the jury, convicted to have made this website that was a multi-million-dollar black market drug ring. That he was determined to be the kingpin. That this judge had some pretty interesting statements again. And I started to wonder about her after her last NDAA, where she threw out and tried to show us what the problem was, if they didn't lean on her a lot. And now she's a little bit more receptive to doing what the government asks, and maybe actually going overboard, because the prosecution didn't even ask that this guy, however guilty he really is, and over what guilt he really has, over making a website that other people used. That's interesting. Be very careful here, folks that make websites that other people use. But he's been a drug kingpin over this. And they used Bitcoin and all that stuff. And so the government didn't like a lot of that. But she went way beyond what even the prosecution asked for and gives this guy life imprisonment without parole. Now, this is a system that puts innocent people in life imprisonment without parole, and worse, that gives them the death sentence. To show you that we really should be concerned about what's happened. This guy might be the biggest scumball there is. I don't know. He might be a drug kingpin. I don't know. I sure would like somebody who's looking at justice to be served in this country and expects to get it, who's interested in this wrong, would look and see and compare, and I hope his so-called attorneys are, comparing how this sentence is legitimate compared to other drug kingpin sentences. And other facts that might be in the case. To show you that they are sending this guy as a victim of sending a message to everybody else. But I'm going to tell you an aside, I saw this sentence, I go, if I was in a little bit different position, this sentence would almost make me want to become one of those. This actually caused me to think, maybe, they're trying to send the sentence the other way. Maybe it's time to jump into this game. This thing was really hurting them for some reason, and maybe it's time that we just started going 180 degrees out. So her sentence didn't actually, in my instant mind, didn't actually preclude me from considering, if they're going to do this to people, then they aren't a system of justice. Even if the guy is a dirtball kingpin, drug kingpin. But actually, who did he hurt? And I'm not going to get too deep in the discussion, but who did he actually hurt but those people that were, self-medicating a lot, maybe better, the decision, than being killed by the licensed drug kingpins. That we find out in the last couple weeks, the psychiatrists killing 500,000 people, because about 9 people, I think, are claimed. The family of 9 people that supposedly buy drugs through this website, from other people apparently, died, and they're blaming that on him apparently as well. that the psychiatry licensed murderers that we now heard a few weeks ago come to bear on they get away with murder 500,000 times and don't serve any time. Then they were talking about heroin and things. When I was reading the story a little bit, I really haven't kept that much touch with this. I'm not doing, behind the woodshed, we don't have time to do that deep of an analysis. I tried to give you things to look for, to get you empowered to go after things, because I think we need to go after these things that are just nonsense and become somehow our reality. Somehow that they're reasonable. Somehow they're not insane. Somehow they're not hypocritical. But when I saw that the heroin was being used, that reminded me immediately of CIA. Now, how is it this guy gets sentenced to life in prison without parole when the government, this same judge knows, it's public, now judicial notice can be taken, that the CIA is actually set up and used the military to protect Afghanistan poppy production? It's known. This is not unknown anywhere that the CIA runs drugs. Why isn't that part of the discussion here? Why isn't the CIA put into prison for life without parole? I'm going to stop right there. It goes on and on. The more I just start shaking my head how ludicrous this kind of a thing is. When CIA didn't go to prison, you see the billions and trillions now, the bankers and banksters, whatever you want to call those people, Wall Street, all the too bigs to fail, none of them are going anywhere. See, that's the government. That side's the government. And the government doesn't like competition, especially so-called dark competition, like what this guy was doing. Even if he's a drug kingpin, I don't see the federal government or any government any less than a drug kingpin, in particular, where they are known to kill people by their so-called license. It's the same company, same construction, and the same establishment that this judge works for in your name. That I was really kind of interested to watch how they want this guy's going down actually for you to deter you. It wasn't on his crimes, actually. It's to send you a message. I hope you appreciate that. What you're paying here, what he's paying for you to be noticed, that you shouldn't do this. That I'm telling you, when I saw this, I go, well, if that's the way this is going to work, and I'm going to be now underneath it. They're doing it in my name. Maybe I'm going to go out and do this. No, I'm not, because I got other focuses. The point is that the thought was there. If this sentence was supposed to deter future people, I don't think it will. And I think there's actually been, I think it's hit the news. Since this Silk Road has been taken down, all the other markets that have jumped in to take advantage. This is no different than the prohibition, isn't it? Where you prohibit alcohol, you raise the price of it because it's so supposedly so hard to get, and you just flood the area with illegal alcohol, and the people flock to it, and that's exactly what the government wanted—a bunch of stupid, drunk people. War on drugs, war on education. Whatever the government touches is not like Midas, is it? Federal Reserve, no gold whatsoever, no Midas touch there. And yet we consider and look and feel, oh, okay, the justice has been done, this guy gets to go to prison without parole. Now, I don't know about you, but I've heard a whole lot more heinous things going on in the world that don't get any kind of anywhere. Even if they get convicted and they get some sentence, there's nowhere near this kind of sentence that you should be concerned. From a data level, not maybe even privately, except that every time you do an update on your computer, maybe they've set up something and make you the node for this kind of stuff, and you get sucked up one day. Except for that, maybe just to look out and say, justice in your name has just been given this guy a jail sentence for life without parole for making a website, essentially. Getting over into government control, and they don't like competition, and if you try to challenge that, you're going to find it tough. And if you don't look at all that and still continue to rely on it, and you're into the digital side of the world, and believe me, I tell you, I'm not against the technology. I'm just against how it's being used and how it's one of those rings in our nose I tell you to pull out. That here's coming in with the government control to be able to handle just about anything that goes on in your life. Was a telegraph here coming to tell you, and as I broke in the broadcast, if you haven't figured out an independent life for finances, you're going to be having some super trouble here. Here's the vaporous nature of the so-called markets, the vaporous nature upon which the house of cards is built, literally on a blowing stream of air. That over just a suggestion now. We used to see markets and finances and the government kind of sending signals to cause markets to shift, to steal wealth instantaneously. That happened after the fact of something. That we're now getting the notice that there's things that will happen in advance that will destroy markets without notice. That they just sent you the little message. If you think you're going to stay in a digital world and stay in control, when you find out the Internet of Things is those that control the Internet controls those things, and if your life is wrapped around those things, that they control your life. Euronext breaks, all derivative currency future trading halted in this organized criminal syndicate. Organized crime running by the world, where their licensees get to murder people, and someone like Ross Ulbricht, it becomes the competition, and they get punched and squashed. Apparently they figured he's very capable. They're not going to let him out anytime soon. Not in this lifetime, at least. But you hear in the same week, usually the markets break that don't take place until after the selling begins. Today, someone in Europe got trigger happy, and as a result, moments ago, the Euronext broke, or perhaps this is just another drill for the big one. The point is, to me, I won't read more. This was noticed to you, folks. This digital world, this digital so-called virtual condition, this existence, you put your life in that, it can break before you get notice of anything happening. If you didn't already figure out, since you don't have the supercomputers that are doing nanosecond trading, that you were out of the game anyway. Here it is, folks. If you haven't heard what's coming down about your bank accounts, what they're based on, the whole derivative, this whole puff and smoke. Again, we talked about this back in 2009 and 10, all that time. This is all based on puff and smoke. And it's amazing how aloft, how high they can keep this thing going and how long they can keep it going, which should have given you the idea that it's all made up, especially after we went to the gobzillions. Now, the government can just do whatever it wants, as you can see, but you know what? They really can't. And this is the point. This is why I say when you finally get fed up, you got to focus your energy and direct it to some place. And the movers and shakers, the policy makers in your life, the ones you will probably never really notice, they know how to focus directly on your necessities. That's what you're looking to remove and make independent as best as you can. It's not necessarily going to be 100%. That's how integrated the plunder is. But the government, it's okay for the governments to do whatever, but these are people, remember, these are people inside governments that do this. So when they're doing something, I just gave you the rule of how I look at this anymore. It's available to you. When you start realizing, I said, go look at your theft by extortion statutes in your states. Go look for felony conversion. Yeah, you got coercion too. Then you got the tampering with the witness felony as well when they mess with you this way. You say, what, folks, when they come after you and they interfere with you like this? You say, it's not the government that's doing it. I've told you this a long time ago. The government is this vessel, this fictional vessel that we have established that people sit in. It's those people that are doing the dastardly deeds that you target. You target them and you expose them for being in the office, maybe even lawfully, as we did in our lawsuit with the governor. And we said, well, he got the office lawfully, but he then went to use it as a criminal. And there's not very much immunity against all that, to tell you the truth. And it was so much so that they couldn't even answer. They didn't even respond. It's a default judgment in law, folks. It's how fast and how simple that was. They weren't going to come out and start answering to more felonies. As I explained to you what happened, I summarily explained to you what happened when Jefferson Mining District sent in a notice to the BLM, and their Leo responded within a few days and committed probably 10 more felonies by doing that. Once that's what the limited form of the representative government is, a limited establishment that you can point out. And we have been silent on those simple statements that would do that. Instead, we get engaged with the system, the fiction that wants to be bigger than it actually is. I'm not saying it's not there and it can't hurt you. The problem is it takes so long because it can hurt you. These people have ganged together. I don't know if I'm going to get to it now. I mean, even so soon, I'm already past some time here. I haven't got the first few tabs. But I do want to say something, but we might get to it a little bit later. But very serious ramifications. But I just say they get together to now hurt you. There was a story, and it is on my board. I'm going to say it right now, though. Remember the shooting 137 shots into a vehicle with 2 innocent people, killed them? A cop jumps on the hood, 49 rounds. I don't know how this guy, I don't know what kind of gun he has. He shoots 49 times. He goes to trial. There's all these cops are shooting in. The people die, 137 bullets. The one officer on the hood, jumps on the hood like Rambo, I guess, shoots right directly point blank into the cab, or into the inside of the car. 49 times. The gentleman is acquitted by the judge because the judge can't find that despite the conviction of the jury, he could not find there was actually any evidence that could prove that any one of the 49 bullets that came out of that cop's gun killed either of the ones inside. That the judgment, notwithstanding the verdict of the jury, which is a motion, is that I will acquit the officer. That when you heard that, you should have been terrified that what you just heard was the legalization of gangbanging. Whether it's official or unofficial. That as long as a group of people come and kill you, and there's no evidence of any particular one killing you, you can be killed and no one will be paying the price. Not even an officer standing on the hood of your car and shooting at you 49 times. Because there was other officers shooting at the same time, no single bullet or action of which could have been shown to prove that anyone done it. That when you start seeing, I told you a long time, you start seeing this, you're living in a lawless world. You better start speaking up, or you're going to be the next victim to it in some way, or someone you know. That I kept telling you, I'm changing a bit of my broadcast. I know it sounds a little bit similar, but I hope those of you who have been listening a long time, you've noticed how I've shifted, and where I talk about and what we do is not just talking about these things to talk about the news. We're trying to expose a reality, and not as a fear, not as a sensationalism, but as the reality, the truth, the very truth you're looking at, the real three-dimensional, tangible world that you live in is something that's there, that can't be is no doubt that is not peace and tranquility as at least the United States of America was promised to exist about, to protect. When it went away and we didn't grab it and stop it and arrest that part, we now succumb to that part. It's on us, is the point. That people really is coming more, that people see this stuff more and more. Last week I talked about this little fast tracking for the trade bill. This is an organized criminal syndicate fast tracking their agents fast tracking these bills as the TPP and the TPIP. There's more people. Remember I told you when the White House couldn't sign on to the rider bill that came in that said that essentially nations that were acting in slavery couldn't be a part of it, that the Obama administration said that they couldn't agree with that. I explained to you why they could say that. Essentially, the United States of America is a pirateer as well. It can do what it needs to do. It's under its own constitutional authority that it could not condemn a country for slavery despite the rules against it. That the United States of America is probably one of the major slaving nations in the world. Another fallout, more people seeing why is the United States desperate to okay slavery in Malaysia. Well, I looked at it a little different last week. I said, well, it's not just okaying it, it's agreeing that you do it too. And it's agreeing that the thing that you're bringing along, this trade bill, is a bill of slavery. A bill is something you owe, remember. They advance these things as things you owe. You'll be subject to. And I hear crickets on this stuff. In fact, I was Grimner sent me a Twitter behind a Woodshed on a thing that, I don't remember her name now, The Resident, I think, and she used to have the old program, The Resident. I don't have her name. She went out to ask people in New York whether or not they knew the TPP. No one knew it. No one knew anything about this. So we're in some straits here, folks. We got some real serious straits. The system and the corporate, as I wrote, back in 2009, we're going into the current Middle Ages of the corporate collective consequence. I found this out by reading international law years prior to that. That we're seeing that happen. If I was a marketer and I marketed myself as a trends researcher, I guess I could have taken that mantle way back when, right, folks? But it's not that. It's about reading and realizing these things we read, and we should be reading, these so-called laws, these things they overwhelm us with, are literal roadmaps to our future. That not only inside that, they're doing admissions that now is becoming apparent to other people as well it was to me last week, that this is really global slavery. I've told you this whole, the thing like sustainable development, this UN imposition, and it's just not that. It's more and deeper. That it's all about the human resource, the human beast of burden, that they've monetized all of us, and they do that through to support all this nonsense that they do. And essentially you're sucked into a debt system. And you haven't really realized that to be able to find out how they're causing that status in you and how to throw it over. It's not that involved. It doesn't take all the things I hear all over the internet. It just takes the addressment, the rebuttal of the presumption. When you recognize certain things are communicated to you in print. But there's an admission in going on right now with this TPP and the TPIP that these are really slave trade bills. There's not just mineral resources and natural resources. Well, natural resources would be people, wouldn't they? Well, they call you humans. That's monster. 1930 Ballantyne's dictionary will tell you that. You're a monster. You don't have inheritable blood, which means you can't have property either. You probably are property. As I told you a long time ago, I don't say it too much now, but I'll say it again. If you don't know about property, you probably are property. And these trade bills kind of set that up for you. But they set them up in the fiction of the corporate world, which has no conscience at all, right? They're only, the bottom line is the bottom line, right? And when you read, 28 USC 3002, any time finances are dealt with, the United States is deemed a corporation. Or United States and its agencies are deemed corporations for the purposes of financial dealings. Well, that's the gobzillions, folks. That's how enveloped this world is about who are the agents now of the finances that are involved in it. All the legal entities are. The whole globe is now, we talked about a long time ago, the United States is turning into the banana republic. This social justice you hear about is the equalization of wealth, the theft from those that are making it, and the pass-through brokerage through places like the UN and their minions supposedly to those lesser in the world that are not doing this. That this is the global syndicate that's going on that doesn't like competition, like what Ross Ulbricht was doing. Because we get rid of the criminal aspect, don't we, folks, at that point? They're just two gang members, and he just got taken out by the bigger Don. Now, so that means that we're dealing with the biggest Don. That's just a criminal syndicate boss, or their minions. And finances, I've told you, this whole construct, this UN, supposed UN thing, this sustainable development, you plan through Agenda 21, all these things, Common Core, all that stuff. It's all part of the tools going after all the things you need in the world, in the life, and to get along, that they're utilizing to bring everybody into equal servitude, no matter how hard you work. And it has the appearance of like a communism. It has the appearance like a fascism, but it's not any of these. It's the new construct. It's the new transformation, they'll tell you. But the proof of this now, and we talked about this a bit a long time ago, about bringing the United States into third world nation status, you're now being told by people that are doing some interesting things. It struck of someone and said, well, what if I took the GDP of nations and applied it to, let's say, the states of the United States? And we've heard this a long time ago, where California used to have the 5th largest economy of the whole world. Well, someone's now taken that one more step and shown us that you can actually transpose certain states for their value with respect to the other nations. Now bringing on the idea that the United States is turning into a global feature, state by state, and it's part of the global features that are being created, all working together, the bean counters are all doing it the same, showing you also each state as brought together brings you into this banana republic perception. This brilliant map renames the United States state with a country generating the same GDP. It's pretty interesting to see what these states are doing, but in fact, remember, it's also in debt that they're being represented. And so it's slowly the sleight of hands happening now, where you're going to be considered to be no different than the rest of the world, the United States, if you thought there was any kind of nobility in what's going on. There just isn't. And we're not standing up to bring that nobility. We're finding we're in a stinking abyss, and some of us are trying to claw ourselves back out. Some, a lot more, don't really care. Why? Because they're being given the creature comforts that makes them comfortable, and they give away their consent to it. So this global order is really the order of organized criminals, and you can participate in it if you want. That's why I say you can be an accessory to the crime against you. I've said this for years and years. I really haven't changed anything. In fact, thank you. I got to thank, as it crossed my mind, thank you for everybody who sent me emails over last week's broadcast. But I do truly appreciate the feedback, and that you thought it was a very good broadcast as to something I did. But I have to confess something. I didn't do anything that, to my mind, different that I've done every week. I just bring the same information. But for some reason, last week, a lot of you apparently were hearing a lot of things I was saying that was resonating, if I can use that word, in you. And I fully thank you for that feedback. But I have to say something. I've been trying to figure out what did I do, because I really would like to have more people listening to what I'm saying. Not so much that I think I'm saying so much so right, although I do. I can substantiate it, even if it's wrong. I can substantiate how I'm looking at this thing wrong in a substantial way. I use what I tell you in my own doings every day. But I don't know what I said last week that got such a feedback that I'm going to have to tell you all, and I just made me feel even better. I'm humbled at your response. But you have to know that that is really coming from you. And I appreciate that you've been doing the work to think about this stuff in a way that the words I said last week hit a few of you that made a whole lot more sense maybe than the same thing I've been saying before. So I'm thanking you. I thank you very much for working hard to try and grasp what I may or may not say so well sometimes, that I've been saying over and over in different ways until people start to hear it. That it became important to a whole bunch of people last week. And I wish I could understand what I actually did. But I've not been able to identify that one thing, except I just do the same thing every week. And I'm going to again say it. Thank you for your integration with what I say week to week. That all of a sudden we had a synergistic biorhythm that came together. That a lot of people started to hear something that I was saying last week. Now what I think I did do maybe a little different. I made sure I gave maybe a little bit more nuts and bolts of what we can do. There's lots of things we can do, and I gave a little bit more of those. But I usually do that anyway. So again, thank you very much for the feedback. I do appreciate it. I'm just going to, again, it encourages me just to come back and do it again, and just keep coming back and keep persisting, even though I hear crickets. It's hard not to hear crickets, and it's hard not to understand that when you hear crickets, it's kind of nice. I like crickets, but not in the context that we're talking. That your feedback to me says you're not crickets. I know you're not crickets, and I'm encouraged that people are seeing that there is these things that we can do, and then we got to do into the next step of actually putting them in practice. But going back to the point, we're being told the seeds are being put in us if we will give them fertile ground to flourish and grow. That we, as the United States of America, and really the entire Western governments, which is a whole conundrum of problems anyway. But the higher ideal is really failed, and your future is such as you're going to be no different than any of the other beat down countries that have nothing else going for them than the debt that they can extract from these countries. Remember that the GDP of the United States includes, I should say, whatever, and I don't know if it includes is limited here, so we'll just leave it generally open. It includes all the expenditures of the government itself to do its thing, which should have sounded ridiculous to you when you heard that. We talked about that way back when they had to close off all the national parks and stuff. We heard them say it right there, that they weren't going to get the GDP from the expenditures that they would have in the government to run these situations, to find out that welfare, the TARP, all this stuff, all these subsidy programs, the expense of the government, all is considered gross national product. And I'll have to agree, that's really gross. You really have to understand you're in a stinking abyss when your GDP is just because you exist from thieving from other people. I hope you get this, folks. We've been brought into a slave condition, the plantation nation, the open-air prison. You're going to work for slave wages. You're going to get the care they give you. If Obamacare didn't tell you that, well, I don't know what to say, folks. I mean, it's writing on the wall to me. Actually, it was writing coming. We could see it. And we give it over to these people in government to make the decisions for us. Just like Scalia said, well, you brought the case to us. Don't blame us. If that didn't kind of straighten your attitude up about what the courts are about, I don't know what to tell you. And when I heard that, it confirmed the direction that we were going, to eliminate the courts. I told you, the Jefferson Mining District et al. Versus John Kitzhaber et al. And the Bar Association and including the political parties, we have a default judgment because we identified there was no court. And to do that eliminated the judge, the bar member that was conflicted of interest, and also conflicted in interest to what we were suing. It removed them from the equation. So we didn't need to go to someone like Scalia saying, well, you came to us to give you the answer. Don't blame us for the decision you got. If that didn't bother you when you heard it, I don't know what you were thinking about. I took notice of that one. That was an interesting one. because, again, the government is situated in a position right now that there has been no accountability in all of these offices for so many years that I don't even think anybody actually recognizes it. And I can tell you that with some pretty much confidence, because every time we try to assert what we've been doing with the Jefferson Mining District through coordination and trying to educate people to what their duties are in government, they are literally clueless. And I can identify the ones that are intentionally clueless. I'm talking about there are people in office, because they're just like you and me, who are in office trying to do a good thing, and they're clueless to the actual obligations and duties of a government. Not the ones that have been beating us down, no, the actual ones. We're allowing these people to come in and take us down. These criminals use legitimate offices that we've used, that were supposed to protect us in our happiness, so-called. It's in our property, folks. The happiness was the enjoyment of the property. It's not just happy, joy, happiness. We were supposed to have peace and tranquility in this idea. Are you feeling peaceful and tranquil? Well, if you're not, and you find out that you're being treated like a property instead of being able to have your property protected and use it in some form of enjoyment, then you're not any longer in the place you were told, and you are required to keep vigilant that it maintain the place you were told. And when you look out and see the government becoming the drug kingpin, and a competition like Ross Ulbricht comes up and gets swatted down as hard as they do, that should cause your attention. When you have someone coming in and saying that there's no what was it? Was it Obama, the unqualified one? What did he just say? He said there was no major wars or something. Where did I see that? At any rate, let's just go with that. I think he did. And I told you, but we have the original emergency that looks like it's in place, which is the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917, amended in 1933, that removes citizens of the United States from being enemy combatants underneath Trading with the Enemy, which has been the underlying continuous emergency all through till today. And then you have wars declared, like the war on drugs, and the war on poverty, and the war on education, and the war on your carbuncles. Those wars are replete. When you hear this Obama one saying we're not in any major wars, you know he's lying to you. Notwithstanding, you look out in the world and you see what we're doing. It's called something else than a war, in a place that was supposed to not get into foreign entanglements. Now, I talked about earlier going on that the Ross Ulbricht appeared to me to be competition to the drug cartel in this nation, the licensed murderers through drugs, and the drug war upon us. That I come across this report, drug war fail, doctors now creating more heroin addicts than drug dealers. Well, don't you think it, folks? The CIA is protecting a supply that's now it's like tripled now since the Afghanistan war. But I don't call this a drug war fail. The drug war was against you, and the government's winning it. We're dying by drugs. We're more reduced in our capacity by drugs. The government's corporate chemists are making profits that they've never been able to make before without this drug war. Again, it's a prohibition. Remember, like alcohol, those that have the license, the monopoly to do so, are going to prosper. If we haven't seen this all these decades, and we are remaining crickets, what do you expect to see? So we're told the drug war fails. I don't agree with that. That's the title. I think the drug war is a great success, and here's it. If you thought the psychiatrists were the sole proprietor of the murder ship in this country, no. The doctors are creating more heroin addicts. You know that can't be a good thing. You know that's not making them more healthy. You know that's not going to relieve the one who's afflicted by this help from any further contact, so that they can live a peaceful and tranquil life. Not the tranquil out of your mind life, not the lobotomized life that's tranquil. I'm talking one that's energized and engaged and just having a big smile on your face. Doesn't mean everything goes right all the time. Life is, Murphy. I guess I have to say, I've said it a couple times. Murphy is probably the only reason I would know to actually agree to abortion. Murphy's Law. If Murphy didn't exist, we wouldn't have that kind of problem. So life's not perfect. It's not utopia, but at least we don't have this monster, this Guido coming to break our knees every time we turn around to try and make a property and enjoy it. Be able to make, you have a right to associate with people privately, and they're not supposed to get involved in our contract. If that's the case, why is Ross Ulbricht involved at all, where two people got together to make a deal on something that we're now seeing the doctors are making addicts of all the time? That we see psychiatrists are given license to kill 500,000 of us every year. To show you the hypocrisy and the definition that simply the government does not like competition. And they're willing to put on anyone they want to make a point. They'll put on people like Ross Ulbricht, who may have been a kingpin. I don't know. He may have been a scum of the earth. I don't know. But I don't know many scums of the earth that do that are life without parole. That the government's not doing the very same thing many-fold over. That we have tons of wars that we're into all the time, notwithstanding what the unqualified. I told you he was unqualified. I told you he was going to be unqualified till it was done. He'd pass through being unqualified. He'd leave being unqualified. Everything he said would be unqualified. That we are in a ton of wars. What happened to the American battlefield, folks, if we're not in a war? What about the stateless war of terrorism, which when you find out the definition is actually government is terrorism. Terrorism is a system of government that rules by fear, intimidation, and dread. When you heard the news that a gang of cops can shoot into the cab of a truck and kill two people that were innocent people died. And nobody, not even the one on the hood of the car with 49 rounds. How did he carry that many bullets into this thing? First of all, but that shoots 49 rounds point blank is not gotten. And I have to tell you something. I agree with the judge. That you can't get the gang prosecuted and a conviction because they acted as a gang. If that didn't scare you, is the kind of world you live in now, I don't even want to, I don't want to say it, so I'm not going to say it. But I just don't know, folks. This is where we are. Fear, intimidation, and dread. That, in a way, terrified me. I'm thinking, how do I now keep this? If I'm already got my ways of interacting with these people that think that they're an authority. And I don't get arrogant. I don't yell at them. They're the ones that are really probably more capable in their proficiency with their arm than I am if I had to defend myself. And they have the so-called system of plunder to back them up anyway. So I can't really think of going to self-defense like that. So I have to figure out a different way. And so I figured out a different way of approaching these guys to disarm them. Disarm them in a lot of ways. That I now had to figure out, and I am asking you too as I think about this, because this is a serious problem. How do you get away from the gang so you can keep it down just to a few people that you're interacting with so that they can't do that to you, or they can't think they can do that to you? Because now that they know that, now that the cops know that, now that the people, the Crips know that, now any of these people, any other gang knows that, they just attack you all at once and leave no identifying mark, and they'll get away with it. That a government that allows that is a government of terror. So those of you taking notes and getting your bag of facts, collect that up. Start addressing the system, the one that yells wolf, that says cries wolf, or the sky is falling, or whatever, is the one that is the criminal. And if they're wearing a color of authority while they do that, that's a felony. That should be a quick arrest. but you have to lay that knowledge out in yourself and the foundation for how that'll work. It's up to us to do that, and I'm not liking that myself at all. We're moving into that phase as I speak. But if we don't make the arrest, who is? If the seat of decision is a criminal. If the war on drugs is the war against you, more evidence. The Pentagon's involved. Anthrax. Pentagon accidentally sent bioweapon to as many as 9 states. Oops, sorry. In an abundance of caution, we're going to tell you we sent you this anthrax. It was live. Sorry. If you don't think there's a war on these against you, the bio war. Who makes that kind of a mistake? You know, we had lots of theories about the government being involved in a lot of this, and a lot of things were coming out. They were tracking mail through the military out into these places. They were telling us was some lone nut somewhere sending packages to congressmen or the mail or whatever, the judges. Do you think maybe they just admitted they're the ones that? Oops, we sent it accidentally to the judge. Sorry, we thought it was for a case. But see, they don't talk about it. If it goes unnoticed, then they don't have to say I'm sorry. But who has the live anthrax here? None of you, not you or me, I don't think. Well, markonthebeachyahoo.com, you can tell me legitimately, do you have it? I mean, I don't know of anybody. Now, I know they got it. Why? Just to pull that out when they need to? Why is the government allowing these kinds of things? And we look at Ross Ulbricht and we see the kind of sentence that he gets, and the government is doing so much more worse under a color of authority to give license to it. And I hear crickets. This is not an argument anymore. This is not an opinion. This is not some philosophical view. This is crime. We call them whistleblowers. They're just people probably fed up, or I don't know, maybe even they might be plants in the government to lay out certain things to us because they know that once we're told, we'll go to sleep on it anyway. Or we'll just go rub our little legs and we'll think the summer night's warm and we're just going to call our girlfriend. There's no cricket rebellion going on. We have people telling us things, we listen to it, go away. Here's another one. The chilling thing an industry insider said about glyphosate, GMOs, and why he sold his conventional seed company, showing the consolidation and monopolization of industry of all kinds by people like Monsanto. In this story, though, there's also another couple of companies which come up later in the news of the same week, which tell you there's a consolidation going on. The bottom line is the bottom line. The government gives license to crime. They'll give license to psychiatrists to kill 500,000 of you. Why do you think that they wouldn't allow Monsanto or any other of these companies to do the same thing as long as it was good for the bottom line? Syngenta comes up in this story about somebody who had to just sell out. There's just no, you look out in the world and there's a reality. He wasn't going to be able to do much with that. They either kill you off business-wise, or they make it difficult, or they make you a target, or they set you up, that he ends up having to sell to consolidate more of the seed-owning capacity, which is really consolidating the genes away from sales so that they can produce the GMOs like Monsanto would do, and syncing up with Syngenta, the poison company, another poison company, to push their product and hold back the ones that they now own or would market. They just hold them back. So you're watching the corporations that have so much more power because they're an aggregate. They can pull from so many places more than any one of us, the people. The power that's in this, the financial power that's here behind them, is almost indefensible against, especially when it's been given that license. That we also then see as we move on in the stories that they come out, that in fact now that Monsanto is attempting to now acquire Syngenta. the real poison maker tied in with Satan. Think about this, folks. Syngenta, S-I-N, I would think. Now, I don't know if there's any kind of a trade deal that goes on where they got to be careful of monopolies, but it sure seems to me, well, I don't think there would be one in the nature of their businesses outright, but you see the conglomeration of these reincorporating and readjustments, and then you find out how the corporations work. And subsequent to this story, Syngenta was saying, well, we didn't want that deal, but we would have to cut loose a couple of our holdings. And so Satan would only be getting a couple of things that we have right now. But you're seeing the divvying up of certain things and the modification of corporations and growing almost, or if you will, virtually organically to become even more formidable, given the license that they have to kill you, should really be a concern. I mean, at some point, I keep saying it should be terrorize you, but you know, I'm beyond that point, actually. You get to the point you just watch the crime. It's time to stop it. It has to be arrested. Do I have all the answers on how that happens? No. Do I have some answers? Well, yes, and we're working toward a better answer. We're working toward how that works. Why? We have to wait because and work slowly and methodically and build a foundation because we're that ignorant as a people. Even those people that purport authority are lost when you bring true authority. By definition, proving that they weren't one to begin with, but that's beside the point, isn't it? So you hear that Satan is attempting to jump on, to attach to, bring in Syngenta. Now, you know, okay, I guess you can acquire and you can do better, this and that and the other, but see, this problem is the monopoly license they have to kill you. That seems to be the problem. This brings up, remember last week I said that the TPP and the TPIP that we talked about, that was going to happen, that behind the scenes the lobbying went to the EU to drop their safer pesticide standards. Now, does that make a little more important point about why that happened? If Satan has been working to try and acquire Syngenta, and that company is the major global chemical supplier? Do you understand there was no protection here for a safer pesticides, even in a place that's pretty known for its pretty high standards, I think almost oppressively so, but pretty high standards for protection. But, you know, pesticides are nothing to mess with here. And then we find the technology behind them is really not so known. The science is not so certain. We want to continue on science is not so certain. We want to find out that the bottom line deserves no presumption, no precautionary principle, but everything you do does. In other words, like Russ Ulbricht, and I didn't even really think I'd be responding too much to that, but that's such a hypocrisy. That they're going to say that they need to protect you from him was the other point. They don't protect you from the psychiatrist that'll kill you. They don't protect you from the heroin addiction you might get if you're prescribed underneath some authority of some doctorship. It's going to help you along, and so you just want the pain to stop. Don't realize is they're pulling you into some trap, some nasty web that the government was supposed to be actually protecting you from. Again, these patents don't give them, because they have a right to market, doesn't give them the right to market if it's a poison. If I make a product, if I design a machine that kills half the neighborhood whenever I want, it doesn't give me license to sell them. I don't have the right to presume that it won't when I know that that's when it's done, even though I haven't told anybody. And yet this is the standard that I hear a mass cricketdom on. I hear no cricket rebellion. I watched, almost with slumping shoulders. It's stunning as I talked to the resident. I wish I remember her name, but anyway, she had that program on RT. I just don't keep up with these people, but I'd responded to the Grimner's Twitter. It's stunning to watch the absence in people, the ignorance in people. And that is the advantage being taken by these corporate heads, these corporations. Satan is just a shell for people to hurt you. And the government, the bottom line, and the government sitting there not stopping it is an accessory. That I wonder about Ulbricht, and what the heck? I mean, what'd you just do? What kind of nonsense is that? They want to tell you that they got the knowledge. They want to tell you that they're doing all this stuff. It's all, so you find out it's a lie. I tell you science is prostrate before the truth. And then inside that, right, I mean, collateral to that, you have people that are really trying to, I'm thinking that they're embarrassed. As I told you, science prostrates before the truth, and you work all your life to be a scientist, and you're a good one. You admit you're only in the questioning phase, but the things you discover are new and they can be used within the limit of their understanding. And then you see things like climate change come on, and you see things like the pharmaceutical industry or these pesticides. You see the science that isn't science behind it. You see the people that are trying to do science being attacked by industry, having license to attack industry, an independent review, making what I tell you, it's not science, it's scienceology. It's the study of what we think we know, and now is told by the corporate voice that there is things out there. Think the anti-GMO movement is unscientific. Think again, came up again for those of you that are looking for proof. If you don't quite get to know where to go, if you get into people that are really just talking out of emotion without having any substantive issues to bring to bear, there are people that you can get information from. There's an article here you can read. You can find out about the findings on certain things and certain aspects that the government is ignoring, that they use to give license to these companies to kill you. That if you remain crickets, they will come and they will spray you with their pesticide, and you'll die like the cricket that you are. I guess the only question then, you're going to die like a cricket? Are you going to stop being a cricket and stand up like a man or woman and tell them to stop? Stop the trespass. Stop excusing the trespass. If you're going to anticipate a market trigger that's going to collapse a financial market, where are you before that? Talk about pre-crime. Why aren't you stopping that one? Why is your system so delicate that a fiction, a derivative, some lie and fraud has that much control over people's lives and welfare and wealth that they've stolen as well? Why are we even agreeing to any of this? There's science now coming out. Some courageous people are having to do this as well. They've fed up with it. It doesn't matter. They get to the point, I'm not going to be terrorized. I know you can kill me. I know you can justify it. You can get away with it. I'm not myself. I'm talking for myself. I am not going to allow that anymore. It's over. In a way that you heard, I've got nothing left to lose. I'm not going to allow the crime against me. It takes more than, I've been telling you, get the ring out of your nose and stop walking as a crime, an accessory to the crime against you. It takes more than just standing still. They'll turn around and they'll try and stick that ring back in your nose. And they'll beat you down until they don't. If they can't get in their nose, they'll stick it around your neck. It's not so simple sometimes what I say. I'm just trying to get initial ideas out to get people moving in the right direction, of the direction that people have to move if they expect to be free from these poisonings, these murders, these executions. The license given under color of authority for all this, all that is felony, folks. It's worse. We've identified it literally. I know it sounds trite, but it's a valuable understanding what the Republican form of representative government actually is versus what we think it is, or what we've been told it is, or what is being purported to be that. It's very clear now how we can direct ourselves to understand that which is made to become trite and ineffectual. If we were to embrace that very thing and what it means, the rest of them are exposed to be criminals. It's that quick. Now what's not so quick is affecting the arrest. That's where we're working now. That's where you can be, if you wish. Otherwise, you will be sprayed with poisons. You will be injected. You will be treated as the crickets. All the crickets will. Science comes along to give us some evidence to say, here, there's some crickets that you don't want to be crickets. You're feeling insecure. You're feeling maybe you're disempowered. But here's some evidence that you can stop. You can stop. Do the cricket rebellion here. Stand up with this. Start here. Because if you don't, the way the lies that have been told are going to get us anyway. Also, not just the oppression by government. Not just the oppression by an occupier, not just the open-air prison, but nature comes to tell us the truth. Satan may tell you that the bottom line's good for them, and you get we got more vitamin B on this and that and the other. Oh, don't plant a damn yam. No, let's go make some modifications to a gene that we haven't really told you all the harm it'll cause you with all the chemicals, the chemistry that gets created within the abuse we've done to a cell. We'll tell you all the good stuff that we can promote for our bottom line, but we're not going to tell you over the years we've noticed, well, maybe those worms we thought we were killing are actually gaining the immunities. Maybe as a pharmaceutical company, we're not going to tell you that because we used antibiotics, it actually made them tougher. Because why? Because nature wins. That's why. That's because. Nature wins. Worm now thrives in GMO corn designed to kill it, study says. More proof here, folks, to counter the crime against us. Whether that come in somebody being bribed into allowing TPPP and facing off with them, or someone local that says, we want to have GMO corn. Oh, now it's even, how fast this came. GMO pot, GMO marijuana, GMO hemp. We knew that was coming before, but I mean how fast it actually implements now. You now have the ability to step up with facts, not your opinion, not your feelings, not your temperature. One of industry's agriculture's biggest GMO crops may have just backfired. Scientists have confirmed the crop-destroying rootworms have evolved to be resistant to Bt corn engineered to kill them. We've heard this coming. Talked about this years and years ago. Here's the evidence. Finally it came. This is something you stick in for those of you that are interested in what you eat and what's getting put in your food. Here's more evidence that you can now get local and active local and spread out as your capacity allows you. And here was the story. I must have put it out of place. U.S. not engaged in major war. Obama memorial remarks slammed. Obviously, folks. This is what, I guess I must put this out of place. Here it is. The unqualified one. States that we're not engaged in any major war. What a joke. I didn't see him repeal the drug war, the war on education, the war on poverty, the Trading with the Enemy Act, which he can't do anyway, but I didn't see Congress step up. I didn't see him work bipartisan together to eliminate the emergencies, giving them the power to kill you. Actually, those bills, those enactments give them the power to attack you when you say otherwise. Why? Because they are they're interfering with interests of the United States, they'll tell you. That should tell you something, that you're not involved with that as well. They're identifying themselves as an occupier under color of authority, if nothing else, or literally, and you had better take that serious. No wars, folks. No major wars going around. No, we're not. The United States is not involved. On Memorial, you got to understand what this is talking about. What an insult, folks. Memorial Day. No major wars. The United States is not involved in major wars. Please don't declare war on stupidity. We'll be done, folks. They don't think anything we're doing in the world, in the Middle East, is considered a war at all. The war on terror apparently doesn't exist, folks. The reason why we are in the Middle East. Now, this has been, since a day, a week or two. I didn't hear much comment on this point. Again, crickets. We're in some real trouble in that regard. There's no response to this. Where are the Oath Keepers? And I don't mean, listen, appreciate what the Oath Keepers do, but you know I'm on record already. There is a failure of understanding of a lot of things under the color of I'm enforcing my oath for a constitutional principle. I am not questioning that. What I'm questioning is our actual knowledge about that. As I've been able to produce and show about the sugar pine mine condition and the oath keepers rightfully stepping up to protect a property owner who rightfully had the right to invoke protection. But what precipitated out from that was a bunch of constitutional discussion that was not required. They still should have been there, but not because they were somehow enforcing some oath. It's because that's what you do, holding people when you get together with people to protect yourselves against an oppression. You don't need a constitution to protect yourself against this crime, this felony that's going on. And I've been able to discuss all that without using all the constitutional things. I presume those are active. I don't make them an issue. When the unqualified one, president that they claim he is, comes out and says we are in no wars, that's not a constitutional violation. But where are the oath keepers to step up and say, hey, you're going to declare we're not in a war. We want you to clarify these other things. And stop your insult to the people that you recruit under all false pretense. That's not constitutional, folks. That's just you having some respect for yourself to not be deceived. I don't need a constitution about that. It's only a limited form of a government, not for my expectations, not what's in me or you. What an insult this is. No wars. And I'm not just talking about veterans. I'm talking about everybody. You don't think there's a war. Battlefield America is not a war, folks. Are you kidding me? NDAA is not a war against you? Psychiatry license to kill you is not licensed. Gang banging now legally is not a war against you. The war on poverty, where there's more poverty. The war on crime. Look at all the people, the crime that's being done around incarcerating people. And I don't know, who was the guy, the writer? I don't remember. I don't know these people. I don't study them. Maybe I should. Maybe it's all, these things come to my mind. Orwell or said something about, it's the inverse of what it is. War is peace and all this. You're living in it, and I hear crickets. No wars. The United States has no wars anywhere. But what a war on drugs? What happened to that? Why is Russ Ulbricht in life in prison without parole if there's no war? Also identifying what the CIA is doing, and that he was competition. Admitting that the war is on the competition to do crime against the government is fighting the war because it's the sole proprietor of the crime that it's seeking to end. It wants your little ones through its education. It wants to indoctrinate them. It wants you poor. It wants to control your existence and your finance. It wants you to have decision over whatever you do in your life, good or bad or indifferent. And I'm not into drugs. I think there's lots of different things to do in the world that you shouldn't have to return, but a lot of that is the excuse and the weakness that we have that the government takes advantage of to make the war. We agreed to people that are licensed to kill us as if they're trying to help us, and so we seek their aid and they hurt us, and so now we're trapped into that trap, and now we're incapacitated as well. We're beasts of burden. It's a whole lot more to pull the ring out of your nose than just recognizing that there's a problem. It takes some very diligent and vigilant observation and decisive, continuous, persistent action. Because in this open-air prison, where we aren't at any war, there's no war on terror, there's nothing going on. The Department of Justice is flying secret airplane fleets over American cities. Someone's finding out, and on the internet, the wonderful thing that the digital world is and can be, explains that you have to now can see planes that can be tracked down to certain alphabet corporations that don't have any actual existence, which I found interesting. If those of you that find this interesting, maybe you can go seek some state help to find out why a corporation's doing business in the state without being registered in the state. Maybe that'd be an interesting little avenue to get in at the FBI. And what they did is they found out that all the addresses go back to some address that the FBI typically uses for these types of things. That you are being found out. Early in the morning, they have airplanes flying over. Whatever it is they're checking for, they're checking it for you. It's another type of surveillance. But there's no war, folks. There's no war in America. The United States is not engaged in any war. Folks ain't dying at the hands of the Kops, which the Lieber Code says is a military, at least a military occupation in your towns. When they come steal your stuff and use it to support themselves, keep themselves secure, that by definition is a military occupation, folks. I talked about this for years and years and years. There's no war going on. These planes are just flying in circles for no good reason. You're under surveillance. If there's no war, why are we under surveillance? So this unqualified one is, we couldn't take it we couldn't say it, we couldn't agree with him to begin with, but here he's so, so arrogant, and rightfully so. He said it, and I heard crickets. So he's going to say it, something else will come up. Because why? We don't respond. And as we don't respond, more systems are built to keep us, to take the noose tighter on our neck, to put the net tighter up around our bodies, a bunch of collecting up our bodies, making it easier for them to do that surveillance on us, flying over the internet, flying over the internet, flying over your towns. I guess I wouldn't feel so adamant about it if I didn't know the government was the biggest criminal, and they're just looking after the people that are their competition. That's the only reason who they're taking out. And that means if you have an independent mind, you are probably the prime criminal. That's essentially what the dark web is the problem here for with Ross Ulbricht, was that he set up a dark web, something that was independent. They actually identified it was essentially beyond the law. Well, beyond the law is outlaw. You're not supposed to be in the law then, actually. But they brought him in for two reasons that should bother you. That he wasn't an anonymous, even under the dark web. He got caught, and they brought him into law, even though he may not have been under the law. It's kind of like what they did to Kim.com. Kim.com never did business in the United States at all, zero, nothing. And yet the United States reached out without any actual authority and jurisdiction and destroyed his open business. It wasn't even dark web. Why? Because he was going to make competition for censors. He was going to be able to isolate you to communicate with other people on file sharing, and now they move it into encryption that the government has made a war on. But this is how they do it. They get you balled up because you're competition to their monopolies and their control. And I hear crickets about that. I hear little uprisings here and there, but nothing concerted. Nothing like I would say I would do in an organized fashion, methodically going about establishing my wrong that I want to make right. Find out the terrain, get the evidence of that, find the evidence within of who done it, when and how, and do the journalistic report on that, the investigative reporter part, and then set to take out those people that are criminals in office. What my experience has been, once you identify it, they don't like it. The higher up they are, the more minions they have to come protect them, but they still are sitting in a felonious situation that they can't answer to. That's a huge psychological advantage. But they're slowly eating away. The surveillance is slowly eating away at your anonymity. And this little report came up. I thought this was very, very interesting. But it sets up another type of problem you have to be concerned about. I would think you have to be concerned about. It kind of goes along the idea of the internet being used, surveillance. The mother was looking for a pressure cooker. The son was interested in the marathon bombing, and the husband was looking for a backpack. And then some cops show up a couple days later on the door and say, "Hey, why are you making a bomb?" This little story was kind of interesting to me along similar lines, in that they use information that they make up to find you someplace doing something that you may or may not be doing. Intruder spray. Subway restaurant armed with traceable synthetic DNA mist. A Subway restaurant in Knoxville, Tennessee is now equipped with a product known as Selecta DNA, which aims to tag anyone who breaks in with an identifying spray containing DNA code viewable only under ultraviolet light. The intruder spray, as its nickname, contains a unique DNA code which can be used as a unique marker and trace both items of property and criminals according to its manufacturer, Selecta DNA. Now, look at the picture. They show a little jet coming down on this one intruder. It must be the ideal condition. What about the overspray, folks? Let's just kind of run this a little bit in light. This spray is in the air now. Don't know what the so-called DNA is. There's some spray with some coating in it they can identify somehow. But now it's in the air and you walk through it. And over some time, you walk some other place and they catch a whiff of you because they can see this ultraviolet nature on you. And now they don't know that you haven't been in a place that was just ripped off, that you get picked up. And they make up how you were there. Why? Because you got this DNA fingerprint all over you. And it doesn't come out of your clothes for months, folks. It doesn't come off of you for a long time. That's when they're talking about someone who's walking through that they think is a suspect. What about if they just start spraying it in the air like chemtrails? But it's localized, not over the air, but where you walk through a space, and they tag you. That to me seemed, and in the Internet of Things, folks, they track you, whatever. The Google is going to own your life because of your digitization. Silent weapons for quiet wars, folks. This story bothered me a lot. We don't know of the secret identification systems that might be going on. This is in addition, maybe, to the RFIDs you agree to put in your pocket called driver's license that have those big antennas on them, now implanted inside. That if you're going to be wrapped into the world like this, you're going to have to know what this guy knows. Polygraph.com owner pleads guilty to teaching people to beat polygraph tests. Folks, the government does not like competition. The owner of the now defunct website, Polygraph.com, pleaded guilty on Thursday to obstructing of justice and mail fraud for teaching people how to cheat on polygraph tests. What I found interesting there, he actually teaches them how to cheat, to actually confound a polygraph test. I don't know if that's mail fraud. But he was teaching you that, he teaches you here that these tests are infallible, but they're not infallible to the extent that they can be made up. And so you need actually to know that they're made up, and you need necessarily to understand how to foil hearsay evidence. It's not even really admissible. This is the other stupid thing by this guy's case. But he got fed up. He's trained. He's an expert in how to do this. He can train anybody on how you avoid being found out even after taking a polygraph, because they aren't science. They're made up. They're defeatable. Why would they be using them, folks? It just makes it easier for them to take you down when they want to. That has to think about this. Polygraphs are beatable. That's not necessarily news, but that someone could systematically teach you how to thwart one. and these things are used in investigations to make stuff up, has to bother you a lot. That they can actually get you to do certain things and respond certain ways. It's kind of like a drug dog in a way. They're not actually, searching for the drugs necessarily. They're watching the master, telling him what they want out of him, right? He's just a dog. We don't know what's in that dog's mind. The same thing here. You respond in certain ways. And they know that. It's like the protocols of the elders of Zion. They know you better than you know yourself, and they used your ignorance about that to get out what they need. And it justifies what they do. It's a big dog and pony show as well. I mean, it's the stage play that they're on. That they use this to cover their malactions and make it look like you're wrong. Make it look like you've done it. Then you focus on you, and you forget they're the ones that are making the crime, which is exactly the way the criminal wants it. The government wants you to focus on somebody, someone, instead of them. 49 bullets, point blank into a cab, and a cop gets acquitted. Despite the jury finding he's the guy that done it, the judge says, well, there was no actual evidence of the bullet coming from his gun and killing anybody. This was a gangbang killing, and we can't prosecute anyone. Maybe why the sheriff that laughed after the condition where the flashbang grenade got that toddler. They're not able, you just have no protection against these people. But guess what happened to that cop? And I don't know that it was karma. I think the story came out that it was this karma. The sheriff that did that laughed about that, was shot himself. You're shot by another cop. The irony of all this. Sheriff Joey Terrell and one of his deputies were shot and injured while responding to a domestic violence complaint that involved another officer. Domestic violence and another officer. Domestic violence and another officer. They're willing to do it to their wife. They don't care about you. And this goes on and on. And they go to protect their own, and they get shot by their own. Can't tell you these people are too smart. Terrell has been the subject of a number of reports. From this location is the Free Thought Project, because he is the law enforcement official who authorized the no-knock raid that maimed and nearly killed a young toddler. Terrell then later broke a promise to pay the family's medical bills when he left them to take care of it on their own. On Sunday, Sheriff Terrell and Deputy William Zigan were dispatched to a domestic disturbance that involved former Gainesville City police officer Anthony Giaquinta, and he was recently fired from his job at the Gainesville Police Department, but as of now, the reason for his termination is unknown. When police arrived on the scene, they found Giaquinta's ex-wife dead in the garage of the home. And these are the folks that are protecting and serving you, folks. You understand? You understand this is what the story is here. The suspect then shot both Terrell and Zigan, then fled the scene and began a search that ended just before midnight when the police found the bodies of the two men. Now, so the sheriff that blew the face off the baby gets shot by one of his own who was doing a domestic violence, beating up his wife. Domestic violence, like would he hurt his baby too? I don't know, but kind of turnabout fair play, except that baby's still hurt, isn't he? And they laugh about that. And then they go even further. Those cops who flashbang the infant's crib are blaming the baby. This is how arrogant this gets, and I hear crickets on a lot of this stuff. Nearly a year has passed since the Habersham County SWAT team stormed into the Savannah residence and very nearly killed a 19-month-old child. The no-knock raid was prompted by an anonymous tip which suggested there were drugs in the house. Now, we're talking about the drug war, the war against you. This is no war. Obama doesn't recognize this war against the innocence of a baby. Then to blame the baby? As the officers forced their way into the home, they lobbed a flash grenade, which wound up landing in the crib where baby Boo Boo, B-O-U, was sleeping. As it erupted, the infant suffered severe burns and had to be taken to the hospital, placed in a medical-induced coma, but took off his face. The sheriff department goes on and says that the child being in that place ought to have known better. Their comment was, the act of sleeping in a room about to be breached by a SWAT team constituted criminal conduct on the part of the infant. At the very least, the infant was fully liable for the fatal injuries inflicted on him by the Hasbergsham County Sheriff's Department. Charles Long blindly heaved a flash grenade, bang grenade, a destructive device as described by the ATF, and when detonated burns at 2,000 to 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Almost sounds like a phosphorus bomb, doesn't it? Merely by being in the room, Bao had assumed the risk of coming under attack by the SWAT team by impeding the trajectory of the grenade rather than fleeing from his crib. Bobo failed to avoid the consequences of that attack. I'll stop reading. It's nonsense, but this is what they get away with, and this is what people allow. This is what the courts have allowed. This is what the judges allow. This is what the attorneys allow. This is what the other officers allow. This is what the public allows. They can laugh at this. And we get this all the time. I mean, I get this all the time. I'm thinking, these people are behind the scenes. They just laugh at us. And so I just turn it up a little bit more. I make sure that laugh comes off their face eventually. And that is a different determination. And here's the report I had. I did get to the tabs. Cleveland officer not guilty over deaths of 2 people shot at 133 times by police. It is this issue where a cop jumps on and shoots 49 times into a cab, killing 2 innocent people. And does not get there's nothing there. Why? Because in a sense, the judge is right. There was no definitive evidence that the 49 bullets shot into the cab actually struck and killed anybody. In fact, there might have been evidence, generally, we know cops shoot and don't really hit much of anything. In fact, all those cops that were shooting at each other in the domestic disturbance only got grazed, only got wounded. No one died out of all the bullets that were flying in there. So 49 rounds, like in New York, I mean, how many cops were there shooting at the people? Everybody that wasn't the perpetrator got shot, and the perpetrator never got shot at all. To say that these people don't shoot straight, maybe there is some credibility that 49 times into the cab point blank, the guy missed every shot. The cops just don't shoot that good. It's like 1 in 5, remember? So at best, there wasn't even 10 bullets that would have hit anybody inside there, let alone in a spot that killed them. But so here's the point again. You're not going to get, these people are learning now gang banging is how they do it. Like I've seen lots of, and it's really disturbing to watch, and so I don't watch them too much. Every once in a while I want to come along. One guy's in a parking lot. He gets surrounded by 20 cops. They half circle him, and then they all gun him down. That's your future, folks. And for those of you that say, and don't make this a color thing when I say this, Black Lives Matter, it's now coming out. I'm just looking at, wait a minute, what happened to the police not shooting anybody? It shouldn't be an execution squad. All lives matter in that regard. How about if we just do the minimum it takes to arrest them and get them in the system if there's actual probable cause? Fatal shootings in 2015 approaching 400 nationwide. That's 800 shootings. But here's the interesting point about this report. Most 1.71 times more likely to be shot if you're white than black. 4 times more likely to be shot than a Hispanic if you're white than Hispanic. And women are not immune either. That the cops are killing whites more than anybody else. And I don't know that I'm hearing a lot about that, but I don't care about the color. In general, we're all sienna, except the blue people. And they're cool too. We're just people. We're different shades of sienna. We have our cultures, we have our ancestries, they're all different, we're worldwide, we're global. The United States was a place where we could all get along. We were supposed to. We weren't supposed to allow these people to take us down, and then they pick us off, and then we make false stories about black people getting shot more than, like they're the victims of this of these shootings. It doesn't look like it by this. And these numbers are underreported, this report says. Everybody put things in perspective here. It's not good that anybody's being shot. It's not any better to say that one group is being shot more than others when it's not the truth. 171 whites have been shot, men. 100 blacks have been shot, 54 Hispanics, 6 Asians, 3 others, and 31 unknowns. And they have another thing about how they were shot and killed, and the real despicable number is when there was actually no weapons involved at all. And these people died. Doesn't matter who they are, what the color is, what shade, what spectrum of the sienna shade they are. Maybe the other was the blue people. 3 of those people died. They're dying at the hands of execution squad cops. That's not okay. And I hear crickets. So this nonsense about black people dying more and we got to support just black people's rights not to be shot, that's nonsense. It's not about color. It's not about your upbringing. It's not about affirmative defense. It's about the occupying force murdering people in the streets, maybe with the help of the psychiatrist putting you there. It's so bad now. It's just kind of funny in a way, not such a hilarious way. It's so bad that cops are shooting people that the housing authority forces workers to wear orange vests in New York PD so the cops don't shoot them. My observation on that little headline was, I think we need to start wearing hard hats, white hard hats, and vests, blazing orange vests, so that trigger-happy cops don't kill us. They'll think we're part of the housing authority in New York. How's that, folks? Let's make a law that the housing authority has to wear vests and a hard hat, and then we'll just all start wearing vests and hard hats. You are facing execution. So much so that the government now is admitting to the fact that they have to give everybody special uniforms so that you don't get shot. Now, I'm not believing that's going to protect anybody, but I'd at least, like I said before, you address certain things a certain way, you can tone down things pretty quickly. Maybe it might give that one little bit chance, that one little question in the guys, the ignorant, the idiots, the less than 80 IQ guy who's got the gun beaded on you, just that little bitty pause to make the difference. That's the world we're down to. The people aren't even smart enough that they're handing guns to go out and not kill the city workers. They aren't even intelligent. Remember, I'm not saying this. The Supreme Court, I think it's been 4 cases now, it declares that essentially you can be too smart and too psychologically stable to be a cop. They are also given these police departments are given license to make tests so they can select certain types of people that fit their needs. It's so bad, and they've been now given license to gangbang that the police, the housing authority in New York saying, you better wear a vest. We've got to give you some kind of protection. Because we can't even trust our own cops to protect you. It's pretty phenomenal. It's kind of hilarious at some level. I wish I was laughing, but I mean, at some point you step back and you have to laugh at this. Not because it's funny. It's because it's not. And we're allowing it. We're continuing to allow it. There's not an outrage. There's no cricket rebellion. Like this podcast is not going to be called Cricket Rebellion. That was last week. This one might be called Government Don't Like Competition. It's gotten so bad, it's like dealing with a hornet's nest. They just come out and sting anybody. Just because they can. Just because. No just cause. Just because. How is that? I'm pausing here for a second. How is that setting with the folks here? I know behind the woodshed, TPP, TPP-IP, I didn't talk much, I mentioned it. If you didn't listen to me, you heard Grimner talking about it a lot. The people that were around the people that I know were talking about it. We weren't, if someone came to us on the street and asked us, do you know what TPP is? I'd say, yeah, it's the TP party. I'm going to throw a TP house party here. But we'd have an answer for that. But apparently that knowledge base is strictly those that come behind the woodshed and those that are like us, that really pay attention. That doesn't go too far. Not many people are putting that kind of energy in. And that's a real big issue. That those numbers of people dying don't have a name on them. This is just the license that the government has given itself and its execution squads to execute not any law. I don't know how you can't come away with this is an open air prison. Not even the other aides in the prison are safe, that they have to put special uniforms on them now. And I would say that right now you better start looking as best you can without, see, it's not really an officer, so you're not impersonating an officer necessarily, but at least give yourself a little bit of cover. Maybe put on that hard hat. That'd be kind of interesting. We'll all start walking around with hard hats and blaze orange vests on just so we get that one moment. Maybe we don't get shot. And those of us behind the woodshed have a better word in our mouth, and we'll be able to avoid being shot altogether. Because we know how to approach it. We know how to flip the burdens. We know how to flip their minds. They're not that sharp. They're not that smart. They're just dumb animals, literally dumb animals. You just have to kind of make sure you be careful about what they think their authority is. You don't want to insult that. But you show them pretty quickly, without being arrogant, that they don't quite know what they're at, and that you're going to be a lot more capable about how to deal with their discretion than they are. And this seems to be the main push. This seems to be the main protection. This ignorance and guidance and lack of actual knowledge of what real authority is gives us that moment. It gives us that ability to have that moment that actually can make a difference. And I'm telling you this as serious as I've ever said anything. I'm telling you that in all seriousness. You may only have a moment to not make the outcome that they want because they think they can get away with it. They'll laugh. They want to do this so that they think it's funny. They laugh. They have people that'll back them up to make such ludicrous statements that a baby had capacity and the self-will and mobilization to determine that being in a house that was going to be swatted before before anybody knew it was going to happen, in a place that it wasn't supposed to happen, that someone will come up and make a statement that baby willfully put himself in that place that justified their action. The people that wrote that excuse should be in jail. As soon as I get to the point that the one who you're talking about has incapacity, where was his attorney? Where was his probable cause? Where was his warrant? Where was his liability, folks? If someone that doesn't have any capability, has no capacity, has no liability or culpability. What happened to that? Why wasn't this stuff brought up? You're going to find out it wasn't brought up because everybody you deal with is an official of the system. And so now that burden, as I've been telling you for years, has been on you, it is on you, and you are going to have to make the decision. You either become susceptible to it or you will rebel against it. However you find you best do it. And I ask, don't put yourself in jeopardy. I don't think any of this at this point requires that we put ourselves in any jeopardy. If we don't do this right, we get run down. We have to do certain things, and then people take advantage of that to make their case on their agenda instead of the truth. They get to set up opportunities, and I've learned to have to work with that, because it seems that wherever we go and we try to straighten stuff up, there's a whole lot of people that want to make a mess out of it, that I've had to learn to take those that would make the mess out of what we would straighten out and use that as an opportunity to make it even more straight. Which is why I say find those wrongs. If this baby getting his face blown off and then getting the whole family being mistreated, and the stupid response that was given to this family is something that bugs you, and you see it around, and you just want to take that under your wing and make it work, make it better, make it right. The evidence is here to start to do it. If you don't do it that way, those that are taking advantage continue until we have literally nowhere to move. We are that property that we didn't learn how to protect ahead of time, how to address ahead of time, how to throw open the fact that there is no authority coming, that what is coming is the crime against you. That excuse about blowing the baby's face off is essentially a felony. It comes under the authority of a reason that's not lawful. Has no authority to exist. So this property issue, again, is critical to understand. The rights of government against property, against an establishment of governments, whether they be federal or state, to protect property, to not invade it, not to give improper no-knock license to destroy. Has been let to go, to allow it to continue, that it becomes the rule across the land. And that becomes the law of the land. And it's not law at all. It's just an occupation. It's a military abuse. It's murderers executing people. It's doors being knocked down where there's no expectation, and they create one, and no one says anything against it. And then we get the people that want to take these things, and they see, and in good nature, they want to call your attention to it, and they want to give the things a title. I told you, anybody who puts a title on something can own it until someone comes with a better authority. I just had it happen. I listened to it happen on a radio broadcast, and I'm working together now with the one who was being interviewed to explain how the discussion got redefined. Because there was no prior definition on something. That if you don't define the condition, someone can steal it from you and they define it for you. Like the cops are doing. Like the government does. And you have to constrain that. That's another problem that you may not be aware of. You can't let someone dictate the conversation. And when they try to pull it off into their point, you have to correct it and bring it back. It's a tug of war at some level, unless you know how to shut the authority, expose that there is no authority to continue. And that's really where I try to go first. I hope you understand that when you show that there's no authority, in other words, quickly stated, I've explained this a little bit in another statement. When we were in the river, we were doing mining. We had granted right to do. A deputy sheriff came to say that I was doing something I wasn't. And the first thing I popped up was the law that allowed me to be where I was. And I said to him, okay, I appreciate that you've got a complaint that gives you the right to be here, but where does your authority not come inconsistent with this law right here? And I pointed out that law in a bag, clear bag, my bag of law, and I said, it says right here that your authority can't be inconsistent with this law. How is your authority not inconsistent with this law? Well, I have a right, and you're saying I don't. So I commanded the conversation from then on, folks. But I didn't get arrogant, and I didn't say how much I knew. I didn't talk about constitutional rights. I put him in a place that says, no, I've got a right to be here. Here's the thing, the objective, black and white basis, I'm doing it. And I was able to control the condition. I was able to establish the property. I was able to actually establish the lack of authority in the one that was in the uniform with all the authority to kill me dead right there. As I told you, I was in a wetsuit. They had tasers and guns. So I wasn't feeling too empowered at that point. I put a lot of my faith in my ability to point to one sentence in a bill in a plastic bag. And that may be the only thing you have. And in that case, for me, it was enough. I had to go 20 more minutes. We turned the tide, and we actually opened up a door to the sheriff's office to get the sheriff to understand what the law was. Not what they think the law is, not how they've been given license to do the law, but what the law is, the law of the land. That's what I've been asking you to do. And all of these things find the objective basis to act from, and you extinguish every professed, purported, or ostensible authority that comes before you. It's kind of that simple. But we have to be well enough versed in these things, these subject matter areas, in order to do that. If we're not, we don't. In this stage of lawlessness, in this stage of governmental, not just oppression, but organized criminal syndicated action globally now, functioning inside the very necessities of your life, stolen right in front of your face, the so-called happiness, the property and enjoyment that was supposed to exist and allow an environment of existence for the use in a peace and full and tranquil way. The entire reality you watch right now is contrary to that. You can't consider even thinking that there's a constitution that's being recognized, that you can resort to. The only other thing we have then is the presumption that they work and the presumption that there's a law, and you're the only one at the moment that's going to enforce it, because the one in the uniform is a felon. Oh, and they're normally armed. That's aggravated felony. As I said on the WT conversation, I kind of broke a little bit into. That's when I asked them, are they going to do their job? They only talk about their job, no, their duty, but we'll talk about their job now. Are you going to do your job to arrest yourself, or do I have to do it? That's not an arrogant statement. That's not even a powerful statement. That's like a dangerous statement, but it's a fact. They're a felon in an arrestable felony, which is a very serious arrestable condition. They're the armed perpetrator. Now what are they going to do? And they know what you just said is the truth. You're kind of standing in danger and straits, but now they're kind of exposed. So now what do? Do they stop and slow down and listen, or do they think they can get away with it? That's where your cameras and your witnesses are really helpful. But that position's a whole lot better stopping them and taking that delay than just taking a bullet right in the chest. And now I've got them on an arrestable felony, and I'm asking them, you want to talk about doing your job? How about you do that one? This is whether or not I really want to arrest that or not. I'm just bringing that up as the factual position that I have to state inside the point of first contact, which is something I will use if I survive. If they put me in court, I'm going to ask that cop, have him tell the court whether or not he had authority at the time. By the way, the law that I presented, he was supposed to be recognizing at the time. And he was going to have to answer to that felony that he admitted to when he continued. And then he has to now answer to the tampering of the witness, the intimidation, and the harassment, all of which are felonies over his felony action. I think that's a lot better word in my mouth and in your mouth to say in front of these oppressors. I don't care if it's a cop or a code enforcer, any of these people, than to have no conversation in your mind and in your mouth at that time at all. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Hope we've advanced a couple more points. You've kind of given you something to think about, to apply. Folks, just find something that you really don't like, at whatever level, and apply yourself to it. I find that people who do that are doing great things, actually, and it's really encouraging to listen. And so, thank you for checking in with me. Thank you for your suggestions, and thank you for any contributions any of you have put in, and tuning in to the broadcast, Royal Liberty Media Network, and the Doge of War. You can go put it, donate some in Dogecoins with the Grimner that way too, or whatever PayPal, whatever. I don't remember what Grimner has set up, and UCY.TV, probably Jules could use the help and or just, good conversation. We have WT and the social network. We have the broadcasters that thank you for tuning in on the sound check to keep me tracking to make sure our sound to you is good, and that it is what people can. It's the audio quality is important. I appreciate the help. But to all of y'all, take care. We'll see you next week. Hopefully, everything will be working out, and just step up where you can. And crickets may be nice to listen to, but don't be one yourself.
Well, that's another lesson. I hope with today's information you can take it to those that misbehave. From behind the woodshed, leaving his mark on the beast, this is Hal Anthony. Till next time, journey with purpose.